Happy Juneteenth, everybody. My name is Bruce Farrington. I'm a local historian, and thank you for attending today this dedication of the Gordon Granger homestead Pomeroy historic sign. I'd also like to thank you for approximately quadrupling the size and population of Joy, New York today. We have some dignitaries here today that represent us politically in the Senate, in the Assembly, and locally here in the town of Sodus. And the one thing that they all have in common is that throughout their careers, they've supported local history. And I just wanted to express my appreciation for them being here today and for that support which they have given time after time when we've done these local events that tell the story of Wayne County and specifically our area in it. And today we certainly are celebrating a significant story, our connection to Juneteenth. I don't know if Pam Helming is here yet, so I'm gonna start asking Brian Mactelo to come up and say a few words. Our New York State Assemblyman.
Good morning, everyone. What a remarkable morning it really is. Here we are celebrating the 200th bicentennial for Wayne County, and we have this in the community of Joy. And earlier I was talking and just telling everyone, I don't know how many times I've been down this road, whether in my car, in a truck, in some farm machinery over the years, and never really realized that this house was here. And the history that actually happened in this house. And, you know, we talk about Joy, this small little hamlet of Joy. What a great community, what a great area. But more so, what a great thing that happened here in Wayne County, that he was born here and was so much a part of our history, a part of what Juneteenth is all about. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for being here this morning. Thank you for this magnificent time that we can learn more about history and what happened here and what this is all about. And again, thank you for taking the time this morning, and I'll keep this very short. I just think it's remarkable that all of us are here. This is also a part of history, a part of Wayne County history. We may not see it, but our families, our grandchildren may see it in the future. So thank you for being part of this. Thank you for being here, and thank you for allowing me just to say a few words. It's an honor to be here, an honor to serve all of you, and may we do that in the Assembly. And Juneteenth, as we walk the halls of Albany, was a big thing, and we're so glad that we were able to do a resolution on the Assembly floor. I have copies of that as well, and I'll be sharing that. But again, thank you for letting me be there, letting me be part of all this. Just remarkable. So God bless all of you. Enjoy the day, and I'm looking forward to hear what everyone else has to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
And now I'd like to have Scott Johnson, our Sodus Town Supervisor, come up and say a few words as well. Scott, you have to really eat the microphone in this one.
I was told very few, too. Good morning, everyone. I am Scott Johnson, the Town of Sodus Supervisor. I am extremely honored to be here today. I would like to welcome you to the Hamlet of Joy and to the special dedication of our new historical marker. Thank you for joining us for this historic moment in the town of Sodus. That was it. That's all he allowed me.
Scott, by the way, is being paid by the word, so we had to keep it short. If you look at your handouts that we gave you, on page 3 and 4 are what I call the cliff notes of General Gordon Granger's life. And it's pretty brief. As you know, when you create rack cards, you got to keep everything down to a minimum. If you'd like to go a little deeper into what his life was about, and he did have a remarkable life, there's a QR code on the page 4. you can just click that with your phone and it will take you to a 23-minute YouTube video I created about his life. And if you really want to do a deep dive, I recommend this book from the library, General Gordon Granger, The Savior of Chickamauga and the Man Behind Juneteenth by Robert Connor. And I'd also like to point out an interesting little feature in this book. This book acknowledges one of the main contributors of his research into this book, which is a detailed biography of General Gordon Granger. And one of those biographers, one of those people who contributed to the information on this book is here today, our own Betty Booney. Betty, could you wave your hand? So she's one of the people that is acknowledged in this book for helping him do this biography. And we appreciate all the work that you did, Betty, to make that possible. It is both ironic and fitting that the events of those days on June 19, 1865, brought so much joy to the slaves of Galveston in Texas. And you can trace those roots all the way back to this joy, New York. And Gordon Granger, who lived in this house behind me. I'd like to spend just a few minutes not going over just a dry biography of his life, but a little bit about the man himself and what we know about him based on all the research that's been done. First of all, the thing I'd like you to know is that Gordon Granger had to overcome great adversity in his life, which reads like a combination Shakespearean romance and tragedy. And let me cite 3 of those adversities he had to overcome. His first adversity was the loss of his mother when he was at the age of 3 and a half, soon after she gave birth to his youngest sister. Now, Gordon's father was busy running a mill, a sawmill, down about a couple hundred yards down that way. And he ended up sending Gordon to be raised by his grandfather in Phelps. And he would not return here to his homestead house until in his teenage years. His grandfather had been a major in the Army. This lack of a woman's tenderness and civilizing effect may explain Gordon having a very gruff and blunt personality. If Gordon Granger disagreed with something you said, he would let you know about it, very undiplomatically and quite blunt in some cases. And the funny thing about it was, he treated everybody that way, whether they were people that reported to him or people that he reported to. And you can imagine that that did not set well with his commanding officers. As a matter of fact, he did not have a very good relationship with General Grant, who did not like his personality. It's true that his commanding officers respected his keen mind and respected that he had a knack for strategy, but they didn't like his personality. Interestingly enough, in his later years, he finally married, and it's said by his friends that he mellowed out once he had that civilizing effect of a woman in his life. I don't know about your experiences in life, but mine has been that women often have that effect on men. The second adversity that Gordon Granger had to overcome was his health. During his entire life, he suffered from poor health, and it's believed that he suffered severe bronchitis. He had to take extended sick leaves a number of times during his military career. The last time was in late 1875, and he would die on January 10th, 1876, at the age of 54. His third adversity is that Gordon lost his proclaimed love of his life not once, but twice. Now, this following information comes from a paper presented to the Wayne Historian in 1967 by Martha C. White, who got the information from the Phelps Citizen newspaper in an article that was published soon after Granger's death in 1876. Sometime in the early 1840s, Granger was stationed in Detroit, where he met a young French lady accompanied by her aristocratic mother. They fell in love and soon became betrothed. After her return to France, they kept up their correspondence. After a few years, he was granted furlough, and he traveled to France to marry her. When he got there, he found out that his parents did not approve of the marriage and refused to let their daughter marry him. He was heartbroken. His betrothed was even more so. She was in despair. She asked him to elope with him. But Gordon Granger refused, saying that it would not become him being an officer and a gentleman to allow that. And so he lost the love of his life that day, and he came back home. A few years later, the mother, accompanied by her daughter, traveled to see him again, out of the blue. She was desperate, as her daughter had gone insane from despair. The mother hoped that seeing Granger again would restore her daughter's sanity. Alas, it did not, and Granger's heart was broken at losing the love of his life yet a second time. This third adversity was perhaps the most cruel one of all. The second thing I'd like you to know about Gordon Granger was what I call the Forrest Gump effect. Now, if you remember the movie Forrest Gump, you remember that Forrest Gump keeps showing up at significant historic events and meeting famous people. Gordon Granger had a knack for it. He really did. And let me tell you why I feel that way. In the early 1840s, he attended West Point and rubs elbows with the likes of Robert E. Lee, Ulysses S. Grant, and Stonewall Jackson, who are in the class ahead of him. Starting in 1846, Lieutenant Granger fought in every battle of the Mexican-American War. He was cited on 3 occasions for bravery and was then promoted to captain. In 1849, he set out on a 2,000-mile military expedition to the Pacific coast of Oregon. It was the longest American military expedition ever attempted. In the 1850s, he acted as a scout out west for the U.S. Army and often was engaged in hostilities with the Apaches and Comanches. He would later relate that this was the happiest time in his military career. In April of 1861, when the Civil War started, Granger was on one of his many sick leaves. He immediately reported for duty. He led troops with distinction and valor at the Battle of Wilson Creek and was promoted to colonel. On March 26, 1862, he was promoted to brigadier general. During the Battle of Chickamauga, Granger would prove to be the right man at the right time at the right place. Chickamauga was the largest and bloodiest battle fought in Georgia. This battle was fought September 18th through 20th, 1863. On the second day of that battle, Confederate General Bragg was attacking the right flank of the Union line under General Thomas and his 14th Corps. The Union line was on the verge of collapse, which would have been a calamity for the Union Army. General Granger's army was in reserve. Without any orders, Granger sensed the danger and reinforced the line just in time to prevent a disaster. Granger would go on to fight with distinction in many battles, but his effort that day in September 1863 earned him the title of the Savior of Chickamauga. After General Buckner surrendered all Confederate troops west of the Mississippi on May 26, 1865, here again, General Granger was in the right place at the right time. General Sheridan ordered General Granger and his 6,000 troops to go to Galveston, Texas. Once more, Granger was to have a rendezvous with destiny. On June 13, 1865, General Sheridan ordered Granger, on your arrival at Galveston, notify the people of Texas that all slaves are free. This would lead to the June 19th General Order Number 3 that said in part, in accordance with a proclamation, all slaves are free. This would end up setting off celebrations by the slaves, which would lead to the Juneteenth celebration. Now, if that's not enough history for one man, history is not done yet with Gordon Granger. In February 1868, you may recall from your history books that President Andrew Johnson was in the process of being impeached as the first president of the United States to be impeached. He requested Gordon Granger to appear as a witness during his trial. As you can see, Gordon Granger experienced a great deal of American history. And remember, in 1868, he was only 46 years old. Quite a life for a still young man. I'd like to recognize some people that were made this day possible. First of all, our Pomeroy sign is from the Pomeroy Foundation. They could not be here today, but they did send a letter of commendation, which I would like to read. Congratulations from all of us at the William G. Pomeroy Foundation on the dedication of your New York State historical marker. We send our greetings from Syracuse as you commemorate the legacy of Civil War Union General Gordon Granger, who issued General Order Number 3 on June 19, 1865 in Galveston, Texas. We wish we could be with you today for this special occasion in celebration of Juneteenth. At the Pomeroy Foundation, one of our main initiatives is to help people celebrate their community's history. We do this by offering grants for historical markers and plaques nationwide, as well as several other history-related initiatives, such as the National Historic Marker Day, which is held annually on the last Friday of April. We feel strongly that markers help educate the public, encourage pride of places, and promote historic tourism. How did our mission come about? My dad, Bill Pomeroy, who is our founder and trustee, had been passionate about history since his childhood. He had fond memories of riding in the car with my grandfather and seeing historical markers that they would stop for and read together. In 2005, when my dad established the foundation, he made funding historical markers a priority. He learned that New York State had stopped funding markers decades ago and left it to the communities to raise funds on their own. This was the impetus for the foundation's first marker grant program to fill that gap in funding, and later became his springboard for several more programs with a variety of themes, including Hungry for History and Legends and Lore. With this New York State marker, you recognize General Granger's role in delivering the orders of President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation in Texas. We commend your effort and send our appreciation to the town of Soda's Historical Society, the Soda's community, and all those who were involved with obtaining the marker unveiled today. We know this historical marker will help ensure your community's history and deep-rooted connection to Juneteenth, and will be remembered today and by future generations. From all of our dedicated staff and trustees at the Pomeroy Foundation, congratulations, warm regards, Darren Pomeroy, who is the daughter of William Pomeroy. There's a number of other people and groups that need to be recognized. First of all, I'd like to recognize Wayne Action for Racial Equality. They partnered with us for many of the activities that are going on today. Jim Wood, whereabouts are you? Wave your hand. Jim, there he is, AKA General Gordon Granger. Thank you for your organization's help. Also the Town of Soda's Historical Society, which is in the form of Sandra Hamilton. Where's Sandy? Don't hide on us, Sandy. I'd also like to talk about Jim Proprocki, otherwise known as Mr. Joy. Jim did a lot of the the research and a lot of the paperwork that made this sign possible. Without him, this would not be happening. Also, I would like to talk about Lois Swales, the owner of the property. Lois, you stand up. Obviously, if we didn't have Lois's kind permission to put this here, we would have to store it someplace where it wouldn't be nearly as historical. I'd also like to thank the Town of Soda's Highway Department, which has helped us with the traffic control that's so necessary here in Joy. I hope it hasn't been too inconvenient for you today. The next step is let's unveil this sign. And I would like Lois Swales, Jim Paprocki, and Scott Johnson to come up and unveil the sign. Thank you, and I knew I was going to forget somebody. Sheriff Milby and his office for their crowd control also.
Littered. I hope they don't arrest me. Go behind that sign and grab the front. That's the front forward. Okay. And Lois, you grab this side.
This has not been rehearsed. This is extraneous. And there we are. Jim, would you be so kind as to read the sign for us, please?
I'm not littering. Gordon Granger, childhood home of Civil War Major General, who is issued General Order Number 3 at Galveston, Texas, on June 19th, 1865, later known as Juneteenth.
If you haven't ever worked on getting a Pomeroy grant, let me tell you something interesting about it. Every single word on that marker has to be provable by first primary sources. We'd love to be able to say he was born in this house. We know he was born in Joy. We know that this was his homestead. But we have nothing to prove that he was born in this house, although he probably was, on November 6th, 1821. So you have to be real exact in your wording. Everything has to be provable. It's like a court of law. Next, I'd like to have General Gordon Granger himself come up and read General Order Number 3.
Today, June 19th, 1865, the people are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free.
Yay!
This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them become that between employer and hired labor. Their freed The freed are advised to remain in their present homes and work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts and that they will not be supported in idleness either there or elsewhere. I'm going to go out of character now. And I'd like to share with you some words from Joey Stewart. Now, many of you know Joey Stewart, and most of you do not. Joey Stewart is a graduate of Sodas High School in the late 1970s, and he has bequeathed, donated the general orders that are found in a document that the government of the United States commissioned in the late 1800s to collect every written piece from the Confederate States of America and the United States of America during the conflict that we know of as the Civil War. And an engraving portrait that was made by the Army of the Cumberland. And that's now in the archive room of the Sodas Community Library. It's very delicate condition, and it'll be on display henceforth every May and June to commemorate Juneteenth and General Granger's role in it. So I'm going to read a couple remarks from Joey. Joey is a heart transplant patient several years ago and has done quite well, but when he heard that we had wildfires on the day that he was to fly into Rochester area, he had to cancel his flight. So he sends his apologies, and he sent some remarks.
General, could you hold the microphone closer? Yes. If I may ask that.
As you might know, this is very foreign to me. These technologies did not exist in my time. I'll do my best. When I first learned of Major General Gordon Granger, I was enthralled by his achievements during the Civil War. As a novice historian, I delved deeper into his background and soon learned he was from Joy, New York. I was stunned at first when I saw, yes, he was from our area, my area. But as it sunk in, it began to make even more sense. For after my global travels across the U.S., Europe, Africa, and Asia, I realized the rare upbringing I had in the town of Sodas, where I always considered myself an American first and any other label secondary, whether African American, Christian, ambitious, poor. None of those labels overwhelmed me because my Sodas upbringing taught me basic humanistic principles. And so, I felt greatly loved by my neighbors, friends, teachers, classmates, and family, all helping to produce an armor-plated self-worth. I played with, ate at the dinner table of neighbors who look like many of you here. They were descendants of some of the earliest settlers of New York State, and there I felt their care and generosity. This humanistic orientation is what shaped Major Gordon Granger. Also, in my view, a belief in the humanity of all people, a love for all warmly shared despite race, religion, or color. This is the unique and powerful lesson I took from Sodas as I went to see and interact with the world. Now, 40 plus years later, that rare lesson in humanity has allowed me to serve our nation honorably, help keep our nation and the world safe, aid in creating the 193rd nation, South Sudan, and share generosity and love across several continents as an ambassador of peace. This gift of General Granger's Juneteenth order and the photos that I referred to before, in my way, is how I give back to the incredible town and its people who gave me so much. Preserve them well and remind future generations it is love that binds us all together. Joey Stewart. I leave a trail.
A paper trail. I would like now to have Reverend Earl Green come up and tell us, in his own words, the meaning of Juneteenth from his point of view. And if you've never heard Earl speak before, you're in for a real treat.
Thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate this opportunity that we have to celebrate Juneteenth and celebrate the work of General Granger. And I don't want to take a lot of time, but happy Emancipation Day. Happy Freedom Day. Now, I don't know how much that means to you. I hope y'all don't mind, I'm a walker. I don't know how much that means to all of you, but I do know that it means a great deal to black and brown people of this country. 2.5 years after the proclamation, this group in Galveston did not even know they were free. General Granger, along with his troops, the Union troops, went and helped free these slaves, or I should say the enslaved people. I'm very careful about my language because we were not slaves, we were enslaved. When you think about the freedoms that we experience today, that we have today, sometimes I wonder if we are truly free. Like the group in Galveston, sometimes we may not realize that in many ways we are still enslaved. The truth of history must be told. And when we avoid that history, we do ourselves an injustice. The freedom of the enslaved people in this country benefited everybody. But we must understand that now, in 2023, we are still fighting the injustices of black and brown people in this country. We are now fighting for the right to teach our history. In certain areas of this country, it is against the law. They have made it a felony for me to teach African American history. I travel across the country, and as I go to different southern states to speak, I have to be very careful with my language. That's why today is so important. Today is important because we are still suffering. Today is important because we are still fighting. And the greatest thing that we're fighting today is the absence of truth. As we witnessed the protests of 2020 after the murder of George Floyd, we kept hearing the chant, "No justice, no peace." I could imagine what these enslaved people thought. Even after they were free, they still wasn't free because they could not leave. And if they left and did anything else, they would be arrested for loitering. The slave patrols were already out, which gave birth to our police departments today. So the events that we have experienced within the last few years, there is a significant historical aspect of it that we cannot deny, nor can we escape. Truth must be told. Let me tell you and close with this. As a preacher, it's hard for me to have an opportunity like this and not talk about what God has to say about it. In Isaiah chapter 59 rather, somewhere around about verse 14. And that whole writing of Isaiah, he shows a society that is broken. He shows a society that cares nothing about truth, righteousness, mercy, nor peace. It was a very confusing time. Confusion and chaos had overtaken the society at that time. The writer says that righteousness or justice was standing afar off. There was an absence of peace. Why? Because truth had fallen in the streets. You see, when truth fails, there can be no righteousness. In the absence of truth, there can be no justice. In the absence of truth, there can be no mercy. In the absence of truth, there can be no peace. Today, in 2023, we are still fighting for truth to be told. Even our political system, even in Congress today, they are doing everything, people are doing everything they can to bring us back and to reinstate, even in the state of Mississippi, Jim Crow laws. We don't recognize that. And there are certain segments of our society that believe that we can still go back to Jim Crow. That black and brown people don't matter. That our words don't matter. That truth doesn't matter. But I stand here today not just to celebrate Juneteenth. I mean, this celebration is different today. It's different because of what we're fighting. We're fighting for the right to be free. There are many people who are not celebrating Juneteenth because they truly don't understand. But in 2023, we're still struggling. We're still fighting for the right to be free. We're still struggling for the right to uphold truth. And if I don't stop now, I'll keep you for the rest of the afternoon. But yesterday, we celebrated Father's Day. And fathers, let me just leave you with this. I don't believe when we celebrate a day, we just confine it to that day. Fathers, it's going to be up to us. Men, it's going to be up to us. If we don't take a stand, if we don't take a stand and stand up on truth, truth will fail. I looked up the definition of the word fathers. In the Greek language, in the Koine Greek, it is the word pata. And the root of that word means, and fathers, listen to this, it means a nurturer, a protector, a upholder. If we are to celebrate today, I'm challenging every man to nurture this moment, to nurture your families, to nurture your children, to nurture your communities, and be a protector. By the very definition, be a man. And then be an upholder. Upholder of values and principles and integrity. Upholders of truth. For when we uphold truth, we allow justice to reign. When we uphold truth, we allow righteousness to be present. And when we uphold truth, we allow peace to prevail. Happy Juneteenth.
And now we're going to ask the Green family to come up and do a musical selection for us.
Well,
Oh,
most of our group is not here,
oh,
so it's just me and my wife. This song, can you all hear me? Testing. Okay. This song is entitled Dumele. It is in Swahili, and it means Jesus makes all things right. Dumele, dumela pena, dumele, dumela pena, oh yeah, dumela pena, tosle elu kele Jesus, tosle elu kele dumele, dumela fela, dumele, dumela fela, oh yeah, dumela fela, tosle elu kele Jesus, tosle elu kele dumele, dumela fela, dumele, dumela fela, oh yeah, dumela fela, tosle elu kele Jesus, tosle elu kele.
dedication here is I'm going to ask Sandy Hamilton to come up and say a few words in closing here. Sandy is the president of the Town of Soda Historical Society.
Can you hear me? Good morning, all. Thank you all for being here. I was asked to thank many people. Bruce has done some of it, but we'll do it again. First of all, we want to thank our representatives, Brian Manctolo, Pam Helming, our supervisor for the town, Scott Johnson, our village mayor, David Engler. Also, we want to thank all of you for attending. We want to especially thank Bruce Barrington and Jim Paprocki for all the work they put into getting this marker. But I also have to mention the women behind them, Edie Barrington and Patty Paprocki. I want to thank our Town of Soda's Historical Society members. I think all of our officers are here today. Our Vice President, Jim Hopkins, our Secretary, Ann Lamadou, our Treasurer, Jane Hopkins, our Town of Soda's our Town Historian, Sandy Hopkins. We especially want to thank Lois Swales for her generosity in allowing us to put the marker here. The Town of Soda's Highway Department for the installation of the sign. We also want to thank our Sheriff's Department for all of their help, and our Wayne County Sheriff. We also want to thank the Joy Schoolhouse Association, and especially Sheila Fisher, and today Danielle Benji is standing in for her. By the way, they have a table set up down the road here at the schoolhouse. Please stop and check out their table, and also consider a donation. They are trying to bring that building back, and we need that here as part of our history. We want to thank the neighbors for putting up with us, of course. And I think I've covered almost everybody, but thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it. And make sure you join us for cookies and punch. Yes.
I'm Lois Swales, and I would like to thank two men who were in my life because they also saved the house. My ex and dead husband, Mike Swales, and after 1998, my partner, Ted Liscano. For 25 years, he has worked on a project that often seems hopeless. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Karen, and I'm part of the
Microphone, please.
My name is Karen, and I'm part of the Historical Society in Sodas. But Edie did all this work, but she showed it to me, and I thought it really should be shown and mentioned to all of you. I didn't know that there was a Juneteenth flag, which is here, and there's several more on the table. If you look at it, it's very symbolic. The symbolic representation of the end of slavery in the United States. There's a white star in the middle that has a dual meaning. The first meaning, the Lone Star State of Texas. The second meaning represents the freedom of African Americans in all 50 states. Then if you look at the flag, there's a verse, a thing around the star. That's inspired by a nova, which is a term that astronomers use to mean a new star. It represents a new beginning for African Americans in Galveston, Texas, and throughout the United States. I didn't notice it at first when I was looking at it, but there is a curved line between the blue and the red. That curved line represents a new horizon, new opportunity, and promises that lie ahead. Trouble is, a A lot of those promises haven't been kept, but we're still working on it. The colors, red, white, and blue, represent the American flag, a reminder that slaves and their descendants were and are Americans. These colors represent continual commitment of people in the United States to do better and to live up to the ideal of liberty and justice for all.
I knew I would forget somebody. I have to thank our trustees for our society too. Steve Hill, who is a former town historian also, is always a great help. Nancy Ross, I'm not sure if she's here today, and Karen Bove. Thank you all.
That pretty much ends our dedication process. I would, as a personal favor, ask you to please come and eat up all those chocolate chip cookies. If you don't, they're going home with me and I do not need them. So please help yourself to the refreshments. Happy Juneteenth, everybody.